welcome. In the last video we created some DAX measures that extended the analysis of our data by utilising a date table and time intelligence functions. Our aim is to get the important information to the end user as quick as possible, and in this video we'll be continuing our report development and highlighting information as we progress. We'll start where we left off, with our matrix table. Make sure the matrix table is highlighted. We currently have revenue, grand total of revenue, previous year revenue, and the growth percentage. Let's add some conditional formatting to the growth percentage to really highlight the differences between the 2 years. And let's navigate over to the visuals area and click on the drop down next to percentage growth. Find the option for conditional formatting and click on background colour. The background colour dialog box will open. We can format colours by colour scales or rules. Let's click on the drop down just underneath minimum and then select custom. The custom value we want to enter is -1. If you recall, when we created our growth percentage measure, it is an actual decimal number converted to a percentage value. Click on the colour palette and select red. Click on the diverging checkbox. From the drop down under diverging, select custom and let's enter 0. We can leave the colour as yellow. From the maximum, let's click on the drop down and select custom, and this time we're going to enter 1. Let's click on the colour palette, and seeing as there is no green available, let's click on custom colour and select a green of your choice. Once done, click OK. You'll now notice the growth percentage highlighted. The next thing we're going to do is remove the revenue by manufacturer visual. Navigate to the visual and click on the ellipsis in the top right corner and click on remove. The alternative way to do it is to select the visual and click delete on the keyboard. Let's create some slicers, but before we do, let's make some space for them at the top of the screen. Take a couple of moments to resize and reposition the visuals, and give a couple of centimeters of space at the top. Once done, click on some white space on the screen, and then navigate to the visualization section on the right. Find and click the slicer icon. Drag and reposition the slicer above the revenue by country name. Let's navigate over to our field section on the right hand side and let's check the checkbox next to date. By default, a date range slicer is created, allowing users to filter between 2 dates. You can also click on the date picker to select a to and from date. I'm going to move my revenue by country name visual down a little bit, and then increase the size of my date slicer. Notice how now when I hover over in the top corner we have 2 icons, a drop down and an eraser. The drop down option gives us additional slicer options. We can select a before date, so anything before a certain date, for example anything before 2018. We can also select after, so anything after a certain date, so for example anything after 2017. We can select a list, which just gives us a list of all the dates. We can have a drop down, which again gives us a drop down with a list of dates. But we can also have a relative date. So we can say, show me all the data in the last 3 years. This will then give us a date range from the current date to the last 3 years. For now, let's change it back to the default option of between. Okay, great stuff. Let's create a new slicer, but before we do, let's resize the date slicer to around half its size. I'm just going to move the revenue by year to the same level as the revenue by country visual. Click on some white space above the visual and then click on the slicer icon from Visualizations. Reposition and resize the visual above the revenue by year. Give it about the same width as the visual below it. Once done, navigate to the Field section on the right hand side, expand Manufacturer and click on the checkbox next to Manufacturer Name. Notice this time that the slicer has defaulted to a list. To filter the page, simply click on any manufacturer. Let's change the style of this slicer. Navigate to the Format tab under Visualizations and click on the paintbrush. From here, expand General. Click on the drop down where it says Orientation and select Horizontal. The slicer will now change into more of a button-like feel, where you can click on and click off as normal. Let's take this a step further and let's replace each manufacturer with an image of the manufacturer logo. Navigate to the manufacturer dataset on the right hand side and highlight the logo column. We're not going to click on the checkbox, we're just going to click on the name to highlight the column. From here, we're going to navigate up to the column tools at the top and click on the drop down where it says Data Category. From the list, select Image URL. With the slicer still selected, let's click on the Fields tab under Visualizations and click on the cross next to Manufacturer. Let's navigate to the manufacturer dataset and click on the checkbox next to Logo. Notice how the manufacturer logos now appear as filters in the slicer visual. I'm just going to resize the visual a little bit and notice how the buttons work the same way as the original slicer. Okay, great stuff. Whilst we're here, let's handle some of these formatting options. As you can see, the logo's title is still on the slicer. Let's navigate to and click on the paintbrush icon underneath Visualizations, and let's switch off the slicer header. Let's also click on the date slicer and again come back over to the Visualizations and switch off the slicer header. Okay, great stuff. It's time to create some KPIs. Click on some white space on the screen and then let's navigate over to our Visualization section on the right. We're going to find the card visual, which has the icons 1, 2, 3 on it here. Once clicked, resize and reposition as shown on screen. From here, let's navigate over to the sales dataset on the right hand side and click on the checkbox next to revenue. This will create a KPI visual with our revenue. As you can see, by default, the KPI shows as an aggregated value. Let's change this to show the actual numbers. Navigate to the Format tab in the Visualization section and expand Data Label. From the drop down next to Display Units, click on None. While we're here, let's change the text size to 25. And then let's set the value decimal places to 0. Okay, great stuff. Now that we've created one KPI, here's a trick to create a second one easily. Highlight the current KPI that you've created and use your keypad to Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V, so copy and paste. Once done, simply drag away the KPI revealing a second one underneath. With the second one highlighted, navigate over to the right hand side and we're going to replace the current value with units. So we're just going to drag our units from our sales dataset and drop it on top of the current value inside our visualization. This will replace the revenue with the units. Let's format this to add in 1000 separator. With the units value highlighted on the right hand side, navigate to the column tools on the top ribbon. Under the formatting option, click on the 1000 separator. We can now click around the visuals and see the high level revenue and units value for each of these years. And we can also click on Australia, control select 2018 and see the revenue and units for that particular area and time period. Okay, cool. Let's move on and create another visual. Click on some white space on the canvas and navigate to the visualization section and click on the gauge visual. This will create an empty gauge visual here. From the sales dataset, navigate over to where it says revenue and click on the checkbox. Find the revenue for the previous year and let's drag this into the target values. Let's move over to our Format tab. Find the option for data labels and let's switch this off. We now have a gauge visual showing us our revenue compared to the previous year. Click on the revenue by year visual and let's change the visualization type. From the visualization pane, click on the clustered and line chart, which is on the second line towards the right hand side. Clicking on this, you shouldn't notice a difference in the visual. But what you will see when you click on the Fields tab is that there is now an option for line values. In this line value, we're going to drag in our percentage growth. So from the sales dataset, click and drag percentage growth and drop it into the line values option. Excellent stuff. Now, as we navigate over and click on a particular country, we can see the growth trend throughout the years. Notice how when we get to Canada, for the last 3 years there's been a good upward trend in our growth of sales. Let's continue and change the theme of our report. Navigate to the View tab at the top and click on the drop down next to Themes. This will give you a number of preset themes which you can click on and see the change. A theme essentially changes the colour palette, the fonts and the styling of your visuals. Once you've had a play with the themes, navigate to the option to browse for themes. This will take you back to your Power BI files that you downloaded. From the data folder, click on the themes folder and select the theme file available there. Once successfully imported, click on Close. Let's change some of the colours on this gauge visual. Highlight the gauge visual. Navigate to the Format tab on the right hand side. Expand where it says Data Colours, and for the target value, click on the colour picker and let's select orange. The target value in the visual should now show as an orange. Let's do the same for revenue and growth by year. Click on the revenue by year visual navigate to the visualization pane on the right hand side, and under data colors, click on the color picker under growth percentage, and again select orange. We're now coming to the end of this video. We've managed to add in some conditional formatting, created some additional visuals, created some KPIs, added some slices on our page, converted some of the slices to images as well, and also changed some of the colours on our visuals. In the next video, we'll be putting the final pieces of our dashboard together. See you in the next video.